This is episode 8 in our Tinkering Bell series, and we're talking about Bloodstone. Specifically, it's about looking to a couple of medieval sources for inspiration to craft a Bloodstone Talisman, done over the course of about 8 days. This talisman is for personal shielding and divine protection, and according to lore, one of the most powerful shields against the devil, demonic activity, warding off curses or those trying to curse you, and all mannerisms of bad juju. Bloodstone, also known as the mineral heliotrope, is aesthetically a dark green stone with red inclusions. Composition-wise, there are a couple of different varieties that are all still referred to as bloodstone. The green mineral can be jasper or it can be chalcedony. The red streaks or inclusions might be red iron oxides or it could be red jasper. When it has the inclusions of red iron oxide, also known as ferric oxide or iron oxide, the iron gives the stone stronger magnetic qualities. That makes bloodstone keenly dialed into unseen magnetic fields. Iron is also classically used in ceremonial magic as a metal for protection. Now, there's an equivalent to bloodstone in Chinese metaphysics and alchemy as well, but it looks different. Chinese bloodstone is, well, for lack of a better descriptive, bloodier looking. It's still a chalcedony with inclusions of red iron oxide, so by mineral definition, it's still the same as the bloodstone or heliotrope more commonly known in the West. And funny enough, from an occultist standpoint, holds the same metaphysical properties. Isn't that neat? It's also highly revered as a powerful protective stone by Chinese occultists and ceremonial magicians, and believed to possess properties that can ward off demons. This installment of Tinkering Bell is going to walk you through crafting your own personal bloodstone for shielding and cloaking. There's this beautiful mythology around the bloodstone where the blood of a crucified Jesus dripped down onto the rocks of green jasper below, and thus made this green stone with speckles of red just like blood. Saint Albert the Great, also known as Albertus Magnus, is a Catholic bishop who wrote extensively on astrology, alchemy, and Christian mysticism. He also makes reference to bloodstone, which we find in the Book of Secrets of Albertus Magnus. Here's what he said. Take the stone, which is called heliotropium. It is green, and it is sprinkled with bloody drops. The necromancers call it Gemma Babylonica, the precious stone of Babylon. So if you're a necromancer, perhaps you're going to call your bloodstone Gemma Babylonica, or Stone of Babylon. But if it is anointed with the juice of an herb of the same name, and be put in a vessel full of water, it maketh the sun to seem of bloody color, as if the eclipse were seen. Extracting essence from the flowering plant heliotrope, we can enchant this bloodstone. More on that later. This also born about maketh a man of good fame, whole and of long life, and it is said of old philosophers that a man anointed excelleth with virtue. So there Albertus Magnus is addressing some of the mundane metaphysical correspondence we've come to associate with bloodstone, great for health and wealth. Oh, fun fact, during the Paleolithic and Mesolithic periods of human history, our ancestors used bloodstone and flint as their principal materials for making battle axes and knives, in particular the Saxons, Vikings, and Celts. It isn't until around the Bronze Age, 2500 to 800 BC, that we start to see use of copper, bronze, and then later on iron. Elementally, bloodstone is associated with the element earth, the sacred mysteries, and the gift of prophecy. Its quality, based on its elemental base, is fruition. The archetype it embodies is that of the guardian. We're going to be using bloodstone to safeguard and protect. After we've crafted our bloodstone, it'll keep you, the occultist, in essence cloaked, so malefic intentions, curses launched, and demonic spirits can't find you. Start by selecting a specimen of bloodstone that is going to be convenient for you to carry around, something pocket-sized, because you are going to have to take it with you everywhere for at least 8 to 9 days. Unless you want to lug around a boulder, please go with something small enough to slip into your pocket. Sometimes you get a rather uniform piece of bloodstone that's all green. That's great for prosperity or health, but for the purposes of what we're doing here, I'm going to suggest you find one with notable streaks of red. Try to source a piece that's got a lot of visible, rich red inclusions in it. There should be unmistakable streaks of red throughout. It should be bleeding. What type of stone should you go with? Raw and natural, tumbled and polished, palm stone, thumb stone, pocket stone, how large? Here you're going to have to make some decisions on your own. Each practitioner is going to be drawn to a different specimen of bloodstone. All right, now that we've covered stone selection, let's actually talk about the bloodstone. One of the early ancient texts we see in-depth mention of bloodstone, also referred to as heliotrope, is from Pliny the Elder, a Roman naturalist and philosopher who lived from 23 to 79 AD. Here's what Pliny the Elder said about bloodstone. Heliotropium, that's heliotrope, bloodstone, or blood jasper, is found in Ethiopia, Africa, and Cyprus. It is of a leek green color, streaked with blood-red veins. In the use of this stone, also, we have a most glaring illustration of the impudent effrontery of the adepts in magic, for they say that if it is combined with the plant heliotropium and certain incantations are then repeated over it, it will render the person invisible who carries it about him. Translation: those crazy-ass occultists with the balls to do such dangerous forms of high magic can cast an invisibility or cloaking spell when bloodstone, a flowering plant called heliotropium, and certain incantations are brought together. Here I interpret invisible as cloaking. Basically, as I said earlier, keeps you off the radar and keeps you from being a target of unwanted malefic attacks. The Grand Grimoire with the Great Clavicle of Solomon, also referred to as the Red Dragon, is another key text that makes reference to bloodstone as an occult practitioner's tool. We're going to examine just the section in the grimoire that refers to the bloodstone. For about a quarter moon cycle, so that's the new moon to the first quarter to the full moon to the third quarter, or third quarter to the new moon, literally this is what the book says. Abstain from the company of the opposite sex so as not to fall into impurity, and eat only 2 meals every 24 hours, once at midday and again at midnight, or once at 7 in the morning and again at 7 in the evening. And before you eat, you gotta recite the following prayer. And there it is on your screen. I'm not going to read all of that, but I'm sure if you want to jot it down, you can pause the video here or find the text in a copy of the Grand Grimoire. To charge your stone, you can follow that prayer, or here's how I'd approach adaptation of this methodology into my own practice. Study that text carefully, deconstructing it down to essential elements, words of petition, identifying a higher divinity, phrasing it as an affirmative decree, and then write your own. You're also not supposed to undress, whatever that means, and sleep as little as possible. Okay, so here's what I get out of all of that. Craft is a full-on total mind, body, and spirit experience. So it involves mental preparation, physical preparation, and spiritual or religious ritualistic preparation. You've got to put your mind, body, and spirit in a different zone from what it's used to. That's how you facilitate unfettered access to parts of your mind and inner capabilities you might not otherwise have clear access to. Apply a certain strain to both mind and body, and by doing so, you open the gates to the spirit realm. That's what I get out of all of that. So here's what you've got to do. Take out pen and paper and think about what strain you personally as a practitioner would need to impose upon yourself, your mind, body, and spirit, so you can access a heightened state of consciousness. In fact, on your sheet of paper, box out a section for mind, a section for body, and a section for spirit. You need to configure and then commit to something for each of these categories. Mind is your mental state. The Grand Grimoire suggests insomnia. I don't want to tell you what to do, but I'm going to pass. For me, I'm going to go with root chakra meditation and commit to 1 hour of it per day during the quarter-month period. Here's what I do for root chakra meditation. For body, the grimoire instructs abstinence and 2 meals per day, timed in a specific manner. For you, think about physical practices and dietary observances that can help put you in a totally different state of mind and state of being. Me, I'm going to commit to drinking at least 64 ounces of water per day, go gluten-free, eat vegetarian, and observe modesty. Say, what? Okay, I'm not going to get too into it here since it's a way tangent, but I'll dress in a way to make sure my clavicle, my arms up to my elbows, so definitely my shoulders and down to below my knees is covered, and I'll keep the colors dark or muted. Whether we like it or not, want to acknowledge it or not, as women, we can unwittingly attract licentious gazes that become malefic energies, which, if not warded off, can accumulate and, I think, hinder craft. Hey man, I'm not saying you gotta buy into that. It's just what I do and what I've found works for me because I'm female and I live in the society that I do. The takeaway point here is you gotta figure out what works for you and what it means to you to keep your own physical body pure. And finally, spirit, which is simply to say that you engage in an active ritualistic practice to connect to the spirit realms, to achieve temperance with your concept of divinity. Recall how the grimoire made reference to a very specific prayer. For me, I'm going to go with the daily recitations of the Great Compassion Mantra. If you're new to my work, then be sure to check the link in the description box to a written post explaining the Great Compassion Mantra, plus a free download of the mantra that you can print out and bind yourself into your own sacred text. Take some time out for yourself to prescribe a total mind, body, and spirit daily practice that you'll commit to observing for a quarter of a month. That's approximately 8 to 9 days. According to the Red Dragon, this bloodstone, called Amethyl, safeguards you from being unduly influenced by demons. When you pray over the stone, you're empowering it and connecting to the stone's spirit or metaphysical correspondences, that magnetic force it gives off. You might want to be a purist and stay with the prayer given in the Grand Grimoire, or consider what I did, which is to opt for a recitation that's going to make more sense to you, or write your own, or channel your own prayers straight from your patron deity. The core of what you're trying to do here is to modify spiritual and psychic frequencies and to attune to this holy trinity of you, the stone, and the greater divine, so that the stone itself becomes a direct channel or empowered battery of the divine, if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, who knows? Recall earlier what Pliny the Elder had said. The cloaking or shielding spell involves bloodstone, a flowering plant called heliotropium, and certain incantations. We covered the bloodstone and certain incantations part. Now let's talk about the flower. Here, I interpret it as anointing the stone with an essential oil of heliotrope, heliotrope being the flower. So you can source oil of heliotrope and anoint your bloodstone with the oil of heliotrope, or if you're like, OMG, where am I going to get the oil of heliotrope? Work with substitutes. It's really just like cooking. Source locally. Figure out the common denominator between heliotrope and what substitute you might be able to use and substitute the heliotrope with what you've got. How do you do that? Start by studying the properties of heliotrope. In terms of its scientific classification, heliotrope is an asterid. Other common asterids: nightshade, forget-me-nots, jasmine, olive blossoms, sage flower, basil, and rosemary. Okay, what's the elemental essence of heliotrope? It's fire. So what asterid can we work with that's also dominant in fire? Basil or rosemary could work. I'm going to anoint with my holy anointing oil from episode 6. Now, over the course of this 8 to 9 day period, you will carry the bloodstone with you wherever you go. Keep it close to your person at all times. When you go to sleep, place it on your nightstand, under your pillow, or just somewhere within your vicinity. Even when you shower, you don't need to take it into the shower with you, but just keep it close at hand. This is, in effect, a bonding period where all of your mind, body, and spirit observances produce an energy, a divine, high vibrational power, which the magnetic quality of your bloodstone is metaphysically absorbing into itself. So you're in effect charging the stone with a power you're drumming up through your mind, body, and spirit observances. On the 8th or 9th day, basically when the moon phase quarter ends, your bloodstone will be ready to go, fully charged. Although I think any quarter moon cycle is going to work just fine for you, if you're really hardcore about correspondences, then here's something you can work with. Bloodstone isn't rare or expensive. It just happens to have all the right combination of qualities that render it the perfect canvas for an occultist's layering of work to produce a shielding and protection stone. Even if you're not a big gemstone and crystals kind of practitioner, I would still recommend giving this operation a try and empower a piece of bloodstone for shielding. Design a methodology that works for you and then follow through. Add such a classically empowered bloodstone to your arsenal of personal talismans. If you're going to give this a go, be sure to download the supplemental handout that has the written out instructions to empower your bloodstone for shielding. Links in the description box below.